Hey, it's time we check back in with Antonio and see how his shoeshine box is coming. When we last checked in, he hadn't yet cut the lid off his box. This was going to be his bravery test. Let's see how it went.
Steve, Antonio here, ready for the next part, and thank you so much. I have got my lid. And you're right, man, that was the moment of truth. But before I get into that, let's lay out, everything you said, perfect. I loved how you went into detail about the exact type of sandpaper. You made it easy for me to put together that glue stuff, although I did have to order, I wanted to get the glue that you said, so I ordered that. It was relatively inexpensive, and so I put together that putty and filled in some of the cracks and areas like that, then went through and sanded on the edges. And then, like you said, I had to reset my saw just a bit, went from the height to make sure I was 1 7/8 of an inch, went through and cut this thing off, and overall did a good job. There was maybe one part, and like you said, we noticed the mistakes we made. There was one part where, yeah, maybe, I don't know, a 1/2 millimeter, something didn't line up, and I've got that. I could probably sand it out, but I just skipped over because the way I look at it, I'm going to put my hinge on this side, and that's going to cover it up. And like I said, no one's going to notice it. It'll just be a reminder that everything I make is going to be imperfect when it comes to woodworking. But like you said, beautiful. The grain is lining up. Look at that right there around my knot. So yeah, man, I'm ready for the nenext part. Let's get into it.
Antonio, you did a fantastic job cutting that lid off. Yeah, it is definitely a little bit intimidating knowing that's your only shot that you have at that. You have to find your happy place. But honestly, even then, if you screwed something up on that, there's more than likely a way that we could have fixed it. That's kind of the nature of woodworking. There's almost always a fix to any problem you make. There's very rarely a time where I've had to completely rebuild part of a project. I love that you pointed out how your lid wasn't completely flush when you cut that off. As you know, I had the exact same thing happen to mine, and I like your take on that, and we've discussed this before about trying to achieve perfection in woodworking, and I'd really like for you to watch a fascinating video I just watched this morning by Rex Kruger. It's called Furniture Forensics with a 19th Century Table. I'll include a link to this down in the description. And what he does is he's found this old 150-year-old table, and he goes through piece by piece, kind of doing a little detective work and determining probably who the builder was and some of his techniques and what was good about it and what wasn't good about the construction. It's one of the most fascinating woodworking videos I've seen in a long time. And he makes this interesting point at the end of the video that today woodworking seems to be consumed with perfection. We want to get to as high a degree of perfection as we possibly can. And by trying to achieve perfection, we are erasing all evidence of the maker who built that thing. In other words, 150 years from today, a lot of the perfectly machined woodworking pieces that are made today won't have a story to tell. Of course, I've never really been good enough with my woodworking to make a project that won't have any stories to tell in the future. I always joke about making a mistake and how it just adds character to the piece, but it's kind of true. All of those flaws and the minor blemishes in our woodworking tell people just as much about the maker of that piece as the piece itself. We're getting really close to wrapping up this box. I need to kind of consider the next order of operations, what I want to do next, and I think it's going to be adding the that inside divider. You want to see the progress on the router table? It's exactly where I left it yesterday. I haven't done anything on it. And it's all your fault. After I posted that video, I got to reading through the comments and everybody had great ideas about how to improve these drawers. So now I'm just like, I got to really think this through, because I think it would make a lot more sense to divide these up into 2 drawers. The problem there is that I'd have to make new faces for them. And as somebody pointed out, these things always start out real innocently. Yeah, I just need to fix a few drawers, and then they blossom into these much larger projects. So I still need to give this some consideration. Hey, you want to do the ABCs of woodworking? All right, let me turn down my exposure. My wacky exposure. There, that looks a little bit better. I forgot, I gotta put this on. You know what that is? It's my teleprompter. It's my cheat. Because on these ABCs and other things where I kind of want to get a lot of information out in a little small period of time, I find that it's always best if I write something up ahead of time, and then all I have to do is read it. Otherwise, I just end up rambling and just talking and talking about things like, well, teleprompters. All right, so the camera comes off of there. And this just falls off of there. Let's do this over here. Slide in there. Oops, I forgot. I gotta take this bottom thing off. It's a whole procedure to do this. Okay, that's off. This goes in there like that. Isn't that fancy? Yeah, look at that. It's like a real production here. Okay, now I gotta set this whole thing then. Goes back up here. Like that. And then I gotta lock it in. This thing's really heavy. I don't know if I really like this teleprompter or not, but I've used it for a long time. So, do you know what's weird? Now, oh yeah, it's probably covering up half of there. Here's another weird thing about this teleprompter is that I have to zoom in a little bit. See that? See the vignettes over here and here? That's because it's not designed for a DSLR, I think. So I have to like zoom in to about there. And now to me, I look kind of dark and I might be a little bit out of focus. So here, I'll try to focus. I'll focus on my hand. That's about where I'll be standing. Right there. This is how you make a high quality production on YouTube. And let's brighten it up a little bit. I'm just about ready to do this thing. Oh, and I get my phone out. This is where I have my script that I wrote. And there's an app that I use called Parrot. And so I have to adjust the brightness level on my phone all the way up. I've got J, and that's what the script looks like. It's upside down and backwards because it's going to be hitting a mirror in here. So all I gotta do is set this up in here, and now I'll be able to do the ABCs of woodworking. I think this is a oh, the effort I put into this show. Okay, guys, are you ready? Ready to cue the theme song? Cue the jingle for ABCs of Woodworking. It's the ABCs of Woodworking. J is for jig. A woodworking jig is a specialized piece of equipment that you can buy, or more commonly, just make yourself. It's usually intended as an accessory to be used with another tool. The main purposes for jigs are to improve precision or to perform repeated procedures easier and more accurately. Some jigs are ones that you can make and use again and again. Jigs like a crosscut sled will give you dead-on accurate 90-degree cross cuts every time, and something like a miter sled will help you make mitered corners exact every time with no setup or calibration. You can buy some commercial jigs that come with all kinds of different settings and calibrations, like this leg tapering jig from Microjig, or you can make your own simpler version with just scrap lumber, and that will also get the job done. Some jigs are permanently attached to a tool, like my drill press table or even my miter saw table. I think some woodworkers might prefer to call these fixtures rather than jigs. I don't know. A lot of times a jig is highly specialized, intended for just one particular project. I made this custom push block specifically for making these wooden snowflakes. A jig can be as simple as clamping a board to your rip fence to make a sacrificial fence, or attaching a long board to your miter saw or your miter gauge as an extension fence. Clamping calls for gluing up panels are jigs. Even a stop block is really a jig. Jig making is a huge topic. There are entire books devoted to making jigs, and the amount of jigs you can make to help with your woodworking is unlimited. Mostly, if you find yourself needing to perform any repeated task on a power tool, it's worth coming up with some sort of accessory to make that procedure faster, easier, and more accurate. Hey, before I go, I wanted to remind you that I have a monthly email newsletter. If you didn't know about it, I publish it on the first Friday of every month. So the next issue is coming out, well, next week. And it's going to be a very spooky issue because it's the October edition. If you haven't signed up yet, head over to notesfromsteve.com and you can just do this. Well, you'll have to type things. It's a little bit more involved than just doing this. You know, type your email and then I'll send you that newsletter. First Friday of every month. I think we're on issue 4 already. So, hey, there's that. And with that, I think our time together will draw to a close for today. I'll talk to you guys later.